Hey guys, Nicole here with Obscure Reptiles and Caging, and today we're going to be talking about breeding reptiles in colder climates. So let's get started. Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about breeding reptiles in places that are on the colder side. So for those of you who do not know, we actually live by Buffalo, New York, which right now in winter it gets incredibly cold. We have lots of snow out there, and like a lot of other places in the United States, we have to treat our animals and have different setups and different things going on to make sure we can accommodate the colder weather with having warm species or reptiles that need a warmer space. The first thing is making sure all of your animals are properly heated and sometimes air conditioned in summer, because we can actually get in the 90s in summer, but then we're in the negatives in winter. So we have a very wide spectrum up here in Buffalo. So first thing you want to do is make sure you know and have a plan of heating and cooling your animals. So it's not like in other places where you can just have your animal in the room. A lot of these species that you breed or can have actually require a hot spot and a cool side, or there has to be a good variance and good temperature range. That way they can cool themselves and heat themselves when needed. That's very easily achieved. You can use things like heat lamps, heat fixtures. You can also use things like heat tapes, heat pads, and hook them up to reptile grade thermostats. That way you can completely regulate the different temperatures inside of each of the enclosures. So one of the things is we breed our animals. We are upstairs in a house, and unfortunately, like that sound right there was our heater kicking on. So in winter, even though we have the house to over 70 degrees downstairs, the temperature does come up here, but it does not reach the proper temperature for the animals that we have. We have dragons, acumonitors, and ball pythons. So we like to keep the main room itself about 78 to 80 degrees just in the room itself. So to maintain that, we have a space heater that's constantly on. Anytime it drops below 78 degrees, it kicks on and keeps it right between 78 and 80 degrees. So if you have a bunch of reptiles and you have them all in the same room, that is a super easy way to make sure they're all maintaining at least their cold side. And then each different species, like our ackies and dragons, have heat fixtures. All of our snakes have heating pads or radiant heat panels. That way you can have everyone as warm as they need to, and that's great for winter. As soon as summer comes, though, we've found the problem that it actually gets too warm up here. So we've actually, even though we have central air in this house, we actually have to, on top of that, have a air conditioner put in the window to help keep the temperature down during the day. It's not too much of a problem at night. It actually can get too cold at night, so we end up putting a heater on at night and the air conditioner during the day, which is not at all what we want to do. The best way we have found to remedy that is we actually change slowly. We only change it about 30 minutes at a time for the dragons, but we make it so that their lights turn on, let's say at 6 p.m. By doing this, we're actually able to stabilize the temperature a little bit in this room. Instead of it wanting to be almost 90 degrees during the day, running the air conditioner all the time, it keeps it pretty steady, closer to that 80 degree mark, because heat fixtures do put off a lot of temperature out into the air. Another thing we had to do to kind of make these cages work is these are 5x2x2 for our acumonitors. What we actually did was we installed, these are Reptile Incubator fans, and we hooked it up to instead of a Reptile thermostat, it's basically the opposite of a thermostat. Instead of when things get too cold, it kicks on. When it gets too warm, this kicks on. So when it gets over 84 degrees on their cool side, it'll actually kick on the fans. All their fans will turn on, and it'll actually push a little bit of heat out of their enclosure so they can maintain the proper cold side of their cage. And it then ends up putting more air out here, but that's fine because the air conditioner takes care of it. But that way we ensure that their cages don't get too hot. When you have things like bearded dragons, stuff like that, anything that requires heat, especially more with a little heat fixture if that's what you're using, between winter and summer, depending on what kind of temperature is going on outside, that can drastically change. Another thing we end up having to do is in winter for our bearded dragons, they have a little bit bigger of a light bulb. We use a 75 watt bulb, and then in summer we actually only have to use about a 40 or 60 watt bulb, depending on if that dragon cage is at the bottom or at the top. But the temperatures really vary between winter and summer, even though this room is maintained right around 80, just because of everything that changes, we actually end up having to change that stuff as well. So make sure you're keeping an eye on that. If you set up any of your reptiles enclosures in winter, check them again in spring, summer, and fall just to make sure that they're holding the proper temperature. A super easy way to do that is just keep some of these in the enclosures. They're going to knock them down. You can get cheap ones, or you can also get ones like this. These ones actually hook up. These ones hook up to my phone, so I can actually check, and you can actually set these ones to have an alarm. So let's say I have this set to, if this room drops below 74, it'll notify my phone, and then I know to go check on wherever these are located. Another big thing is shipping. You need to make sure you have enough supplies, enough everything to get you through winter. Finding someone local who has all different sorts of bugs, because a lot of our animals eat different things like dubias, mealworms, superworms. We breed them a little bit, but not to the extent when we, for example, have baby dragons hatching, baby ackies. They go through a lot of insects. So make sure either you've stocked up, you're breeding your own, or you have a few different reliable people that are local with good pricing. The hard thing about relying on other people is if they change their prices, they decide not to do it anymore, or they just don't have enough to keep up with demand, you end up being the one who suffers because you don't breed your own. So breeding that kind of stuff isn't always the best, most fun thing to do, but it'll save you money and it'll ensure your animals have enough food source, especially when it's too cold to get them shipped in, or if big snowstorms happen and you can't get to them. Exact same thing applies for rodents. You're going to keep the rodents in the house. You're going to want to make sure you have some sort of filter system, some kind of air purifier, because they will smell. You'll have to clean them a lot more often than if they were, for example, outside. So you want to make sure you are not making these animals uncomfortable. You want to make sure that they're nice and comfy. So if that means you have to buy an air conditioner, sometimes you'll have to do that type of stuff to make sure even your feeders are well cared for. In order to ship your animals, you need to make sure that the temperature is not only correct where you are, but where they are going. So if somebody down in Florida wants something from me, but it's only 30 degrees up here, unfortunately they have to wait, which also means that I need to know I have enough supplies and enough rodents, enough feeders, enough cage spaces to keep that animal throughout the winter. So a couple of tricks for that is maybe around fall time, run some sales. If you still have a lot of babies that have not been sold, or you have a lot of things that you would like to have them go. Because if you have 80 babies that you did not sell, and you normally don't produce enough rats to not only feed your adults, your breeders, but now also 80 babies on top of that. So you need to really make sure that you have enough supplies to be able to make it through winter. Ship your reptiles rules are you are not supposed to ship when it's below 38. I tend to like to at least have it in the 50s before shipping, just to make sure it's safe, unless it's going to be very warm on the whole route to where the animal is going, because there can be delays. You can get live arrival guarantee, but you want to make sure that that animal has the best chance of surviving. Normally, throughout December, throughout a lot of January, anytime there's holidays, shipping is super delayed, so you want to make sure anything that you are going to ship, even if it's not too cold, it doesn't coincide with different holidays. So normally like November 1st is like the last day you really want to be shipping. Again, even if it's warm enough, you've got a whole bunch of different holidays. You got Black Friday, all these things coming up, and a lot of people now are ordering online, which backs up FedEx, which then backs up getting your animal there in the proper amount of time, because these animals do have to sit in cold locations at some points during their travels. To make it there overnight, they have to be on planes, they have to go on different buildings, in different vehicles. They are going to be in cold areas, and there's not too much we can do about that, so you want to give them the best chance of surviving. Good tip, if you're going to be living somewhere where it gets very cold, is you need to have something like a generator. You need a way in case the power goes out for any reason, especially if it's cold because of winter and something happens and you have no power. You need to keep these animals warm. If your house drops to 60, you'll be fine, but they will not. Animals, once they get below, let's say 60, 65, it'll actually start shutting them down, and most of the time they will not make it, even if heated up after that point. So you want to make sure that they are staying warm, and a great way is to have a generator. Make sure it's set up, you have extension cords, you have a plan. Call it your emergency reptile plan, and make sure you know exactly what to do if that happens, because time will be of the essence if there is no power. Let's say the heat goes out in the middle of the night, you wake up in the morning, it's cold, they're already cold, you need to get that solved as soon as possible. These are reptile heating packs. We have a whole video about shipping. If you don't know what these are, how to properly use them, check out the video. We'll put it in the description box below. But what you do is you put this right in a box used for shipping, like this. And it's got foam in there. You end up putting this in here just like it's supposed to. It even has instructions. Make sure you do it properly. And you close up that animal and you can leave them in there. I'd go for about 12 hours. Take it out, make sure that animal has some water, make sure it's doing okay, make sure the heat pack is still working, because a lot of heat packs are 48 to 72 hours. I wouldn't do it too long, maybe 12 hours at a time, but that could really help you, your animals, and your whole collection thrive and make it, especially in a case of an emergency. But that's it for this video. If you guys have any questions, you can put them in the comments below. If you haven't already, please subscribe. We do videos every Wednesday, and we'll see you next Wednesday.